What happens when Ariana Grande walks onto a live set like The View? And within minutes, the conversation takes a turn no one in the room was expecting. Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The camera opens on the familiar set. The hosts are seated, smiling, the audience clapping as the segment begins. You can hear that upbeat energy that always fills the room at the start of a celebrity interview. One of the hosts leans forward, smiling warmly. So today we have someone who honestly needs no introduction, singer, actress, global superstar. Ariana Grande is here with us. The audience erupts into loud applause, some cheers rising above the rest. Ariana walks out, waving gently, her signature smile in place, clearly used to this kind of reception. She hugs a couple of the hosts, exchanges quick greetings, and takes her seat. "Hi, thank you so much for having me," she says, her tone soft but confident. Another host jumps in immediately. "We're so excited you're here. There's so much going on in your life right now. Music, acting, everything." Ariana nods. "Yeah, it's been busy, but in a good way. I feel really grateful." The conversation starts light, exactly how these segments usually go. They talk about her latest projects, her schedule, and how she manages the pressure. The audience listens closely, laughing at small jokes, clapping at the right moments. Then Sunny Hostin leans in slightly, her expression shifting just a little. Still polite, but more serious. "Ariana, I want to talk about something that's been coming up a lot lately," she says, her tone measured. "You've been very open about your personal growth, your boundaries, your experiences in the industry. But some critics say that celebrities, including you, sometimes speak on issues in a way that feels disconnected from everyday people." There's a subtle shift in the room. It's small but noticeable. The kind of shift you feel before something gets uncomfortable. Ariana keeps her composure, still smiling slightly. "Okay, yeah, I've seen some of that." Sunny continues. "And I think the question people are asking is, do you feel like you fully understand the impact of your platform when you speak on things like mental health, relationships, or even social issues?" The audience quiets down. A few murmurs ripple through. Ariana tilts her head slightly, choosing her words carefully. I try to. I'm always learning. I don't think anyone fully understands everything, you know?" Sunny nods, but she doesn't pull back. "Right, but when you have millions of followers, your words carry weight. And sometimes people feel like celebrities can step into these conversations without really living the same realities." One of the other hosts quickly jumps in, trying to soften the tone. "I think what Sunny is getting at is just the responsibility that comes with that kind of influence." Ariana glances briefly toward her, then back to Sunny. "I understand that. I really do. But I also think, just because someone's life looks different doesn't mean they don't feel things deeply or go through things." There's a small wave of applause from parts of the audience. Sunny responds almost immediately. "Of course, but there's also privilege involved. And sometimes that privilege creates a gap between intention and impact." Now the tension is clearer. It's not aggressive, but it's real. Ariana's posture shifts just slightly. She sits up straighter. "I've never claimed to have all the answers," she says. "I just speak from my experience. And if that helps even one person feel less alone, then I think that matters." Sunny nods again, but her expression stays firm. "But what about when it doesn't help? What about when it unintentionally sends the wrong message?" Ariana pauses. For a moment, you can see her thinking. "Well, then I listen," she says. "I learn. I grow. I think that's all anyone can do." The audience reacts with a mix of claps and quiet murmurs. Another host jumps in, smiling, trying to ease the tension. "And that's something we all try to do, right? We're all learning in real time." Ariana smiles politely, but the energy has already shifted. It's no longer a casual celebrity interview. It feels more like a discussion, one that's slowly becoming more pointed. Sunny leans forward again, not letting the moment pass. "But Ariana, do you think there's ever a point where celebrities should step back from certain conversations? Let others lead them?" Ariana's smile fades just slightly. Not completely, but enough to show she's taking the question seriously. "I think it depends," she says. "I think if you care about something, you should be able to speak on it. But you should also be willing to listen more than you speak." There's a brief pause. Sunny responds. "And do you think that always happens?" Ariana looks directly at her now. "No," she says honestly. "I don't think it always happens. But I try to make sure I'm doing that." The audience reacts again, this time more mixed. Some nodding, some quiet. One of the hosts laughs lightly, trying to bring the mood back. Okay, this is getting deep early in the segment. A few people in the audience laugh, breaking the tension just a bit. But Sunny isn't quite done. I just think it's important to challenge these things, she says. Because influence is powerful. Ariana nods slowly. I agree with that. There's a beat of silence between them. Not awkward exactly, but charged. You can feel that something deeper is starting to build beneath the surface. The conversation moves forward, but the tone has changed. The smiles are still there, but they're more controlled now. The energy is sharper. And you can tell, this isn't just going to stay a polite discussion. Something is starting to unfold. The conversation doesn't reset after that moment. It lingers. There's a brief pause, the kind that usually gets filled quickly on live TV. But this time it stretches just a second longer than normal. You can almost feel the producers behind the scenes wondering whether to pivot or let it play out. One of the hosts smiles, trying to smooth things over. I think what's interesting here is how public conversations have changed. Everything is so immediate now. Social media, reactions, criticism. Ariana nods slightly, but she doesn't fully relax back into the lighter tone. Yeah, it's immediate, and it's also permanent. Like, people don't always see the full context, but they react to a moment. Sunny leans in again, her voice calm but persistent. But Ariana, sometimes the context doesn't change the impact. That's the point people are making. Ariana turns toward her, still composed. I understand that. I really do. But I also think people forget that we're human beings having conversations in real time. We're going to get things wrong sometimes. Sunny responds quickly, but that margin for error is different when you're speaking to millions of people. There's a soft murmur from the audience again. A few heads nod. Others stay still, watching closely. Ariana takes a small breath. So what's the alternative? Just not speak at all. Sunny doesn't hesitate. No, not at all. But maybe being more intentional about when to speak and when to amplify others. Ariana's expression tightens just slightly. Not defensive, but more focused now. I do try to amplify others. I've used my platform to highlight voices, causes, organizations. Sunny nods. You have. But people still question whether celebrities sometimes center themselves in conversations that aren't about them. That lands heavier. There's a noticeable shift in Ariana's posture again. She leans forward now, her tone still controlled but firmer. I don't think caring about something automatically means you're centering yourself, she says. I think it means you're trying to use your voice for something positive. Sunny keeps eye contact. But intention and perception aren't always the same. Before Ariana can respond, another host jumps in, sensing the rising tension. I think this is a really important conversation, though, because it's not just about Ariana. It's about how we all engage with issues now. The audience claps lightly at that, grateful for a moment to breathe. But Ariana isn't pulling back. I agree, she says, then looks back at Sunny. But I also think there's a lot of pressure put on people in my position to be perfect, to say everything exactly right all the time. And that's not realistic. Sunny nods, but her tone doesn't soften much. It's not about perfection. It's about accountability. Ariana responds almost immediately, and I'm okay with accountability. I've taken accountability for things in the past. I've apologized when I've gotten things wrong. Sunny tilts her head slightly. Do you think apologies are always enough? That question pulls a reaction from the audience, some oohs, a few scattered claps, a couple of surprised looks exchanged. Ariana pauses again, longer this time. I think apologies are part of it, she says carefully. But growth is the bigger part. Sunny presses. And how do people know that growth is happening? Ariana's tone sharpens just a fraction. By actions. By consistency. By continuing to show up and do better. There's a small burst of applause from the audience. Another host smiles, trying again to lighten things. And I think people have seen that from you over the years. Ariana gives a quick, appreciative nod. I hope so. But Sunny doesn't fully step back. Some have. Others feel like celebrities, in general, move on quickly after controversies, while the people affected don't get that same ability to move on. Ariana looks directly at her again. I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak for myself. Sunny replies, and that's fair. So speaking for yourself, do you think you've ever moved on too quickly from something serious? The question hangs in the air. The audience goes very quiet now. Ariana's expression shifts, not angry, but more serious than at any point so far. She takes a breath before answering. I think there have been moments where I wish I had handled things differently, she admits. but I don't think I've ever intentionally tried to dismiss something or move on without reflecting. Sunny watches her closely, but intention doesn't erase impact. Ariana nods, but this time there's a hint of frustration creeping in. I know that. You've said that a few times. There's a slight ripple through the audience, some surprised reactions at the subtle pushback. Sunny doesn't react emotionally, but she does respond. Because it's important. Ariana holds her gaze. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, it's not as simple as people make it seem. Another host quickly interjects, her tone more energetic, trying to shift things. Okay, let's take a second because this is clearly something people feel strongly about, both of you. A few audience members clap, some relieved laughter breaking out. But Ariana continues, her voice calm but firmer now. I just think there's this narrative that celebrities are out of touch or don't care, and that's not always true. A lot of us care deeply. Sunny responds, I'm not saying you don't care. Ariana nods. I know, but that's how it gets interpreted sometimes. Sunny leans back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. And that's why these conversations matter. Because perception shapes reality. Ariana lets out a small breath, almost like she's deciding how much further to go. Then maybe the conversation should also include how quickly people judge, she says. How quickly people assume the worst. That gets a stronger reaction, more applause, a few louder cheers. Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly. So you think criticism is unfair? Ariana shakes her head. No, I think some criticism is valid. But I think some of it becomes excessive, or even personal. Sunny responds, that comes with being in the public eye. Ariana doesn't miss a beat. It does. But that doesn't mean it's always right. There's another pause. The tension now feels fully present. Not explosive, but steady and undeniable. One of the hosts tries again to redirect. Let's talk about your new project for a second, because there's a lot of excitement around it. But Ariana gently lifts her hand, not interrupting rudely, just signaling she wants to finish her thought. I just want to say one more thing, she says. The audience quiets instantly. I think it's important to have these conversations, she continues. I really do. But I also think it's important to remember that growth takes time. And people are allowed to evolve without being constantly defined by their worst moments. There's a strong wave of applause now, louder than before. Sunny listens, then nods slowly. I agree with that to a point. And just like that, you can feel it again. They're not done. Sunny lets that to a point sit for a second, and the audience immediately reacts. Some soft oh sounds, a few claps, and a noticeable shift in posture from people leaning forward in their seats. Ariana turns slightly toward her again, her expression calm, but clearly more guarded now. What does that mean? To a point. Sunny doesn't raise her voice, but her tone is firm, deliberate. It means growth is important, yes. But accountability doesn't have an expiration date. And sometimes people feel like public figures move forward, while the people affected are still dealing with the consequences. There's a pause. Ariana nods slowly, but her eyes stay locked on Sunny. I hear that, she says. I really do. But I also think it's unfair to assume that just because someone isn't publicly talking about something anymore, they've moved on privately. The audience reacts with a mix of murmurs and a few claps. One of the other hosts leans in, trying to balance the tone. That's actually a really important distinction. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Sunny glances briefly at her, then back to Ariana. That's true, but when you've built your platform on being open, and you invite people into that process. So when you stop sharing, people notice. Ariana gives a small nod. That's fair, but I also think there has to be a boundary. Not everything is meant to be processed publicly. There's a louder round of applause now, some audience members clearly agreeing with that point. Sunny doesn't dismiss it. She nods once. I agree with boundaries. Everyone deserves them. But I think the tension comes from where that line is drawn. Ariana leans back slightly in her chair, but her posture stays engaged. And I think that line is different for everyone. Sunny responds quickly, but when your influence affects millions, that line becomes a public conversation. That lands again. The audience quiets, listening closely. Ariana's tone stays measured, but there's a subtle edge now. It's already a public conversation. That's why I'm sitting here talking about it. There's a small ripple of reaction, some claps, some surprised looks. Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly, not offended, but clearly registering the shift. And I appreciate that you are. Not everyone would. Another host jumps in, her tone lighter but still controlled. And I think that's why this is such a compelling moment, because this is real. This is what people are talking about at home. A few audience members clap in agreement. Ariana nods politely, then looks back at Sunny. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying I'm above criticism. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes. I do. I have. Sunny leans forward slightly. Then let me ask you this. Do you think celebrities sometimes get more grace than everyday people? The question hits differently. It's less about Ariana directly, but it still puts her in the center of it. Ariana pauses, thinking. In some ways, yes. And in other ways, no. Sunny tilts her head. Explain that. Ariana continues. I think sometimes people are more forgiving because they feel connected to you. But at the same time, the level of scrutiny is intense. Everything is amplified. Sunny nods. So you think it balances out? Ariana shakes her head slightly. I think it's complicated. I don't think it's as simple as saying one group has it easier than the other. The audience gives a thoughtful murmur. Less reactive, more reflective now. Sunny presses just a little further. But do you understand why people might feel that way? Ariana answers without hesitation this time. Yes, I do. There's a brief silence. And I don't dismiss that, she adds. I just don't think the solution is to tell people to stop speaking or to question whether they should be part of certain conversations at all. Sunny responds, I don't think it's about silencing. I think it's about responsibility. Ariana nods. And I agree with responsibility. I just think responsibility also includes being open to growth and allowing space for it. Sunny looks at her for a moment, then says, but that space can't come at the cost of accountability. Ariana exhales softly, a small smile appearing. But it's not the same relaxed smile from earlier. It's more controlled, more aware. I don't think it does, she says. At least not when it's genuine. The audience claps again, though it's a bit more divided now, some louder than others. One of the hosts tries again to shift the energy. You know, what's interesting is that both of you are actually agreeing on a lot. You're just coming at it from different angles. A few laughs from the audience break the tension slightly. Sunny smiles briefly at that. That's fair. Ariana nods. Yeah, I think we agree more than it sounds like. There's a small moment of relief in the room, but it doesn't fully settle. Sunny adds, but I think the difference is, I'm focusing on how it's received, and you're focusing on how it's intended. Ariana considers that. Yeah, that's probably true. Sunny continues, and both matter. But when you have a platform like yours, the reception can sometimes outweigh the intention. Ariana responds calmly. And I think that's where listening comes in. Sunny nods. And do you think celebrities listen enough? That question pulls them right back into the tension. Ariana gives a small, almost knowing smile. Some do. Some don't. Just like everyone else. The audience reacts with a mix of laughter and applause. Sunny smiles slightly at that answer. That's a fair point. There's a brief pause, and for a second it feels like the conversation might finally settle. But then Ariana adds, her tone still calm but more direct than before. I just don't think it's helpful to generalize. When people say celebrities this or celebrities that, it kind of erases the individuality of people. Sunny nods slowly. I can see that. Ariana continues. And I think it also makes it harder to have real conversations, because it becomes about categories instead of people. That lands with the audience. More thoughtful nods, quieter claps. Sunny responds, but categories exist for a reason. They reflect patterns. Ariana doesn't back down. They can, but they can also oversimplify. Now the energy tightens again, subtle, but clear. One of the hosts laughs lightly, shaking her head. Okay, this is turning into a full-on debate. The audience laughs along, some clapping. But Ariana and Sunny are still focused on each other. Sunny says, I think it's an important debate. Ariana nods. I agree. There's a pause, longer than usual for live TV. Then Ariana speaks again, more quietly this time, but with a noticeable weight behind her words. I just want to make sure that when we have these conversations, we're not discouraging people from trying to do better. The audience reacts, some clapping, some murmuring. Sunny listens carefully, then responds, her tone slightly softer now. And I want to make sure that when people try to do better, they're also held to a standard that reflects the impact they have. Ariana nods slowly. I think that's fair, she says. Another pause. And for the first time in a while, neither of them jumps in right away. The tension doesn't disappear, but it shifts. It's no longer just confrontation. It's something more layered. But even now, you can tell. This conversation isn't fully resolved yet. There's a quiet moment after that last exchange, the kind that feels heavier than anything that's been said out loud. One of the hosts finally breaks it with a small smile, looking between both of them. I think this might be one of the most honest conversations we've had on this table in a while. The audience responds with warm applause, not loud or explosive, but steady, appreciative. It's the kind of reaction that comes when people feel like they've just watched something real unfold. Ariana gives a small nod, her expression softer now, though still thoughtful. I appreciate being able to have it, she says, even if it's uncomfortable at times. A few people in the audience laugh lightly at that, and even Sunny lets out a small smile. Those are usually the important ones, Sunny replies. There's a slight shift in energy, less sharp, more reflective. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's settled into something calmer. Another host leans in, her tone warm again. Before we wrap, I just want to say, I think a lot of people at home are probably seeing themselves in this conversation. Because it's not just about celebrities. It's about how all of us communicate, how we listen, how we hold each other accountable. The audience claps again, a little louder this time. Ariana nods. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think we're all still figuring that out. Sunny adds, and hopefully getting better at it. There's a brief pause, and then one of the hosts shifts gears slightly, smiling toward Ariana. Okay, before we let you go, we do want to talk about your new project because people are very excited about it. Ariana lets out a small laugh, the tension easing just a bit more. Thank you. I appreciate that. They spend a short moment touching on her upcoming work. Nothing too deep, just enough to bring the conversation back to a familiar talk show rhythm. The audience reacts warmly again, clapping and cheering, though the earlier discussion still lingers in the air. As the segment wraps, the host turns back to camera. Ariana Grande, everyone. The audience applauds loudly as Ariana stands, exchanging quick hugs with the hosts. When she reaches Sunny, there's a brief pause, just a second, but then they share a polite hug. Thank you, Ariana says quietly. Thank you, Sunny replies. It's respectful, professional, but you can tell there's still something unspoken there. The camera cuts to a wide shot as Ariana waves to the audience and walks off stage. And just like that, the segment ends. But the conversation doesn't. Within minutes of the broadcast, clips start circulating online. Short segments of the exchange between Ariana Grande and Sunny Hostin begin appearing across social media platforms. Some clips focus on Ariana saying, "People are allowed to evolve without being constantly defined by their worst moments." Others highlight Sunny's line, "Accountability doesn't have an expiration date." The reactions come fast, and from every direction. Some viewers praise Ariana, calling her calm, composed, and genuine. Comments start appearing like, "She handled that with so much grace." And "She didn't get defensive, she actually listened." Others side with Sunny, saying she asked the questions people at home were thinking. Sunny said what needed to be said. One post reads, "That's real accountability." There are also those who see both sides. Clips of the exchange get reposted with captions like, "This is what real conversation looks like," and more of this, less scripted interviews. Backstage, the energy is quieter. Ariana is seen speaking briefly with members of her team, her expression thoughtful but calm. She doesn't look upset, more like she's processing everything that just happened. On the other side, Sunny is also talking with producers, nodding as they discuss the segment. There's no sign of conflict behind the scenes, just the kind of post-show breakdown that happens after a moment that clearly stood out. One of the producers can be heard saying, "That's going to be everywhere." And they're right. By the end of the day, the segment is trending. News outlets pick it up, headlines focusing on the unexpected tension and the honest exchange. Clips from The View are shared across platforms, pulling in millions of views. Some commentators analyze Ariana's responses, pointing out how she stayed composed even when pushed. Others highlight Sunny's persistence, saying she didn't shy away from asking difficult questions. Debates start forming online, threads, videos, reaction clips. Was Ariana being misunderstood? Was Sunny being too harsh? Or was this exactly the kind of conversation people have been wanting to see? Even other public figures begin weighing in, some subtly, some more directly, talking about the balance between influence, responsibility, and growth. And while the internet continues to debate, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. It turned into a moment people are still talking about long after the cameras stopped rolling. Later that evening, a shorter clip of the exchange is posted on the official page for The View. The caption reads, "A conversation on accountability, growth, and public influence." Within hours, it racks up thousands of comments. Some viewers say it changed how they think about celebrities speaking on serious issues. Others say it reinforced their expectations. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. It felt real. And maybe that's why it stood out. Because in a space where conversations can sometimes feel rehearsed or surface level, this one didn't. It had interruptions. It had tension. It had disagreement. But it also had moments of listening, reflection, and honesty. And those are the moments people remember. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Ariana Grande handled the situation the right way? Or do you agree more with Sunny Hostin and her perspective on accountability? Was this a fair conversation, or did it go too far? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.